Spoiler alert. There will be spoilers related to the story and characters. If you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this. Welcome. This game is my life, and that sentence just now was a metaphor. And today, I'm talking about Metaphor re Fantazio. I played through the game a little while ago, and thought it was pretty fun. And while I was having a really good time playing it, unfortunately, I could not even get the first follower in the game, while at the same time, maxing out every single bond. Will I be replaying it? Yes. Did I not play it for around a month, just for this bit, and so that I wouldn't get that achievement? Also yes. While I was playing through the game, the moment archetypes were introduced as like the main power, my question became very clear, which was, are the archetypes of each character related to their personality? And if not, what would their actual archetype be? Before we begin, there are a few things I need to explain, like what archetypes are in the game, what archetypes are in real life, a few other things like structuring and who I'm talking about in the game. But if you don't want or need an explanation for any of this, then there's chapters in the description down below for each section and character. First of all, in Metaphor, archetypes are used as a power to activate magic without an igniter, which most people need. They're like a necklace or a staff, which allow you to use magic, and archetypes are supposed to be the embodiment of the person when they transform into a new form. Actual archetypes, on the other hand, do not have the ability to transform you into a robot suit. It's very unfortunate. And they're just like the main personality and traits of a person summarized into like one or two words. As for the characters I'm talking about, I'll be including all the Bond characters, as well as the main character and Luis the villain. For the structuring, I'll be talking about the character's tribe or species, then in-game archetype, and then talk about their personality, what it's like, and the real archetype in relation to that. Going straight into the main point, I'm going to start with the main character, or Will, as he's described as whenever you switch the language. That's his default name, is Will. He belongs to the Elda tribe, which is near extinction, and everyone believes to be like a cursed evil tribe. It has the characteristic of most like normal people, and technically he's half part of the Clemmer tribe, which I'll mention later, but his Elden genes overpowered them, which basically makes him a full Elden. His in-game archetype appears near the end, and it's the Prince archetype. Looking at the personality traits of the main character at the beginning of the game, he's fairly innocent and is still learning about the world that he's been put into. He's fairly knowledgeable in combat and is kind towards basically everyone. On top of this, he's very charismatic to the point where even though everyone hates Eldens and views them as misfortune and evil people, they'll rally behind him. Not only does he start from nothing, but he overcomes great odds and comes out victorious to make like a better future. For this reason, I'm going to be saying that his actual archetype is the hero. This archetype usually describes someone who is thrusted into a new world and overcomes all odds to better society. They also have great amounts of courage and perform an act of self-sacrifice near the end. Next, looking at more, his tribe is the Clemmer tribe, which is the most populous in this world, and the defining trait of this tribe is the horns on their head. They kind of look like goat horns. Moore's archetype in-game is the Seeker. As for his personality, much of his story revolves him around having amnesia and trying to find out who he is. He's also a researcher who investigates archetypes and holds lots of knowledge close to him and wants to find out like the truths of the world related to this. But when he does eventually get his memories returned to him, he becomes a lot more nihilistic and eventually through the story places his faith in the protagonist, letting him do what he needs to do. Because of this, I believe the best fit for his archetype would actually be the Sage. My main reasoning for this comes from the fact that he constantly wants to know more about the world and has knowledge stored in academia, which is the place he lives in. Not only this, but The fact that he struggles to just let things happen and have them play out rather than him having any say in it also reinforces this. After that, we have Strohl, who also belongs to the Clemmer tribe, and his archetype is the warrior. For his personality, he tends to treat people pretty equally despite being a noble, and doesn't really let it affect him at all, and even sometimes goes out of his way to hide the fact that he's a noble. Not only this, but he has a strong sense of justice, while also having quite a lot of sarcasm, to where people sometimes think he's a bit of an asshole. For this reason, I'm having Stroll be the rebel. I feel like this fits the best, as he always wants to do the right thing, while also ignoring and taking down the system. The best example would be just at the beginning of the game. Despite knowing that the group he's about to join is basically gonna have the entire kingdom against them, he still joins because he believes it's the right thing to do. Next, we have Gallica. She is a fairy, and pretty much that explains it. She's a small human being with butterfly-like wings, and her archetype is the mage. I feel that her personality is fairly straightforward, being that she was with the protagonist from the beginning of the game and serves kind of like his moral compass and main advisor. For that reason, I'm placing Gallica as the mentor archetype. It's pretty self-explanatory for why I chose this archetype, as Gallica fits the role almost one-to-one, whether it's knowledge about the world that the protagonist doesn't have, or advising him on what's right and wrong in the world. Looking at Maria, she's half part of the Ishka tribe and the Rogue tribe, with most of the defining features of the Ishka tribe being the wings spreading from the back, but unlike normal Ishka, whose wings sprout from like the base of their backs and then wrap around them, Maria's wings are higher on her back, and they're smaller, either from being part of the Rogue tribe or her just being a child and them not being fully grown. And her archetype is the healer. Maria is a fairly shy and kind girl who is unaware of the major problems of the world, but despite being naive about all this, she tries her best to make the others around her happy. She also likes to hear about the protagonist's adventures and see all the different places he's gone to. For this reason, I think Maria's archetype is the innocent. This archetype matches her fairly well, as the innocent usually represents someone who is pure and optimistic about things. It also represents the desire to be free and happy, which she also wishes for the people around her. Next is Hulkenberg's tribe. She is part of the Roussant tribe, which can be identified from their long, pointy ears, and from what I assume to be tufts of fur at the end. They are also much taller and have like stronger builds than the other tribes. Her archetype is the knight. She's a very formal person overall, but takes really good pride in protecting people around her. When she originally failed to protect the prince, she felt like a deep shame, and after reuniting with him, she thought to protect him with her life, so she takes her job very seriously. Because of this, I'm giving Hulkenberg the caregiver archetype. My reasoning as to why is because she cares quite a lot for others around her and is willing to put her life on the line in order to protect them, sometimes even neglecting her own feelings in order to accomplish her goals. Then looking at Catherina, she belongs to the Parapus tribe, which has the defining features of animal ears and tails, usually being that of either dogs, cats, or rabbits, or a species that are close to those. This character specifically has rabbit characteristics. Catherina's archetype is the brawler. When first meeting Catherina, she doesn't seem to want your help, but begrudgingly takes it, and later she becomes your rival in order to try and stand up for her tribe. Throughout the story, she is slowly discovering what she can do to help her people and find the place that suits her the best. For this reason, I think Catherina is the explorer archetype. I feel like this archetype fits her the best because she's constantly trying to prove herself and get like freedom for her people, Also, she is constantly having new experiences, and when her people try to force her to do things that she doesn't really want to do, she tells them off and does her own thing while still trying to help them. Looking at Brigita, she is part of the Rogue tribe, which mainly looks like a normal person, but with the key features being facial markings on them and having the double the lifespan of the other tribes. She has the archetype of the merchant. Brigita lived in poverty when she was younger, but through determination, she made her own business and even did the dirty work of the church so that she wouldn't be taken away from her position. Eventually, though, through her story, she becomes a lot kinder and realizes in order to stop the church from doing these horrible things and spreading false words, she needs to use her own powers that she's built up in order to take them on. Because of this, I think that Brigita has the archetype of the entrepreneur. This archetype describes someone who wants to build something for themselves, be it like money, a legacy, or reforming of society, and all of these things relate to Brigita. Neuras is part of the Ishka tribe, as you can see with the wings, and his archetype is the gunner. Neuras is extremely smart to the point of being obsessed with his creations. His dream is to build a vehicle that can fly, and upon doing so, is extremely happy. He's also very eccentric, and everyone thinks he's very strange for this. On top of this, he's a workaholic to the point where he can add modifications to the party's vehicle over a couple of days and make it transform into a boat. For this reason, I think Neuras is the creator. He fits this archetype quite well as he has a passion for creation. Not only this, but he loves to have full control of what he creates and will go out of his way to not create or live with anything mundane and make his life interesting. Next, for Alonzo, he belongs to the Nydia tribe, which has the main characteristics of having large glass-like eyes, and the tribe also has a very big secret, being that they are hiding their true form from the other tribes because they wouldn't be taken seriously otherwise. Their true form just looks like a small child, and Alonzo has the archetype of the faker. While Alonzo has good intentions and wants to make the world a better place, he decides to use his deception to bring justice to others. Many find him really untrustworthy because of this, but deep down he has great caring for others, especially his mom. Unfortunately, because of how he brings others to justice, he doesn't really think there's other ways to solve problems. Thus, I think Alonzo is the trickster archetype. My reasoning for this is that the main things of this archetype are mischief and disruption, which he does quite well, from stealing money and giving it to others to fooling your character and getting his own way with justice. Heismay is part of the Ujif tribe, which you don't see a huge amount of in the game, as they're pretty much shunned from society because they don't look humanoid. Their features make them look like a mouse, gerbil, and bat mixed together, and his archetype is the thief. While meeting Heismay in your adventure, he seems like a serious but pretty kind person, and upon learning more about him, you feel for him quite a bit, and you realize that he's really old actually. Through the adventure, he uses his experiences and knowledge of the world to help the team face the challenges that they have. For this reason, I think that Heismay is the magician archetype. The magician archetype tends to revolve around someone with lots of knowledge who wants to use that to help the world and others, but is also worried about unintended consequences that they might have, which makes them very indecisive. I believe that Heismay fits this very well, as he's experienced much of the world and has a lot of knowledge to boot. On top of that, he wants to make a difference and change society as a whole, but is very worried about the discriminatory factors towards his tribe as a whole. Junah is part of the Nydia tribe and is the only one we actually get to see in their true form in the story. She has the archetype of masked dancer. Many in the world think of the Nydia tribe as liars, but through Junah's efforts, managed to somewhat limit the discrimination to a degree. She is a singer, but also secretly an agent of the Elder tribe, and she loves her craft and wants to move people with it, as singing is the only real way that she can express her true self. Because of this, I believe that Junah is actually the lover. My reasoning as to why is that she not only seeks connection through her songs, along with this, she is quite optimistic and often inspires others, be that her teammates or fans. Eupha belongs to the Mustari tribe and has the defining features of usually hiding their faces in these giant iron masks, but they seem pretty lax about this despite it being part of their religion, and they take their masks off quite often actually. They have a third eye in the physical and spiritual sense, as they can see magla out of it, which is just mana, and Eupha has the archetype of the summoner. She has been sheltered from the outside world for most of her life, but upon learning the truth about her people and their religion, gained new confidence to protect and change the world. She is also quite a positive person, but at the same time naive of like basic sayings and how some parts of the world work, sometimes taking figurative speech as a true statement. And lastly, she's fairly blunt with most of her speech at times, thinking that she's just letting them know the truth and there's nothing wrong with that. For these reasons, Eupha has the idealist archetype. I believe this because she is quite naive to the world and thinks things will turn out, whether it be events or that people are always telling the truth. She's also quite positive and wants to improve herself through the adventure. Basilio is part of the Parapus tribe and has the characteristics of a wolf with its ears and scraggly-like tail. He has the archetype of the Berserker. While Basilio is originally an enemy, he eventually becomes an ally in an attempt to do good and redeem himself. Even though he might come off as stupid, he just prefers to let others do the thinking for him, and upon realizing that he might be the bad guy, he spends quite a lot of time thinking about this, and after reaching a turning point and betraying Luis, he joins the main group in an attempt to redeem himself and fulfill his original goal of helping others and protecting the weak. Because of this, I think that Basilio fits the Redeemer archetype pretty well. This archetype is based around someone with a sense of right and wrong, with a deep desire to always do what's right. Not only this, but from trying to redeem himself and society as a whole makes this fit extremely well. Looking at Luis, he originally looks like part of the Clemmer tribe, which are the ones with the horns, but it's revealed near the end of the game that he had been wearing a headband this whole time as to avoid discrimination, and is actually part of the Elder tribe. He doesn't have his own named archetype other than his like final forms at the final boss fights. For this reason, I'm just going to be talking about his main archetype. While at first Luis seems like a meritocrat who values rationality and appoints people based on merits and not tribe, deep down he's a very power-hungry, evil person who wishes to end racism through forced evolution of the tribes to make them one race, meaning that almost everyone would die at around a 90 to 95% death rate. On top of this, he's the story's main antagonist, and throughout the story makes efforts to harm others and do anything and everything to get his way, including murdering the king and an attempted assassination of the prince. He also manipulates others and tries to use military strength to get his way. Because of this, I think that Luis is the shadow archetype. He's very clearly the opposite of the protagonist, not in the way of his goals, but in the way of going about these goals. While the main character tries to solve racism of the tribes by like uniting everyone together, Luis instead decides to murder everyone and turn them all into one race. This marks the end of the people and archetypes that I'm going over. In general, archetypes can be based differently by people depending on how they think. Someone could see a character and think what they're doing is really bad, and someone else could see it as rational thinking. That's just how it is. If you think a character has a different archetype, or just want to let me know about some other archetypes and different characters in Metaphor, let me know down below. Thanks for watching. Bye.